Hi, and welcome to the video on cluster sampling. This is our third video on sampling methods, where the first one was in SRS, just a little review, and the second was stratified. Okay, so here you get a sampling frame, give everybody a number, and use a table or a calculator to pick your sample size. Here you go ahead and separate them into strata, okay, which are homogeneous groups, and then you take an SRS from each strata, and that makes up your sample. And cluster sampling is the next one, and it's sort of similar to stratified. Okay, so I'll show you. So we have this population. We have this population. So we're going to kind of do the same thing, but we're not going to call them strata. Okay, we're going to call them clusters this time. So what happens here is I'm going to split these people up. Okay, so I'll call this a cluster. And you have to be real careful because you only could use this in one case. Okay, so you have this population, and we're going to split these population into clusters. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just reach up here and take this cluster. Okay, and I'm going to take this cluster. Okay, so you select clusters at random. You select clusters at random, okay, using an SRS. You select the clusters, the groups at random using an SRS, and then we perform a census. If you recall, a census is we go ahead and gather all the data. We form a census on all clusters. Okay, so when does this work? When does this work? Now remember, I said anytime you get a sample, so essentially that's your sample. Okay, so let's say there was like 50 here and 50 here, so the sample would be the 100 from both of those clusters. Okay, so when does this work? This only works when all clusters are a good representation of the whole population. Okay, so let me just go show you an example where it wouldn't work. Okay, so you have your high school, and you have your freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. Okay, so let's say we need, we're going to go ahead and sample here. So I'm going to call this 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I name all this 1 to 4. Okay, so I go ahead and enter my table, and I want to pick 2 of these. I want to pick 2. So let's say I'm saying I want to pick 2 classes. So let's say freshmen get picked and seniors get picked. Okay, so the question is the freshman a good representation of the whole population? Are freshmen representative of the whole population? No. So if 1 gets picked and 4 gets picked, okay, are seniors a good representation of the whole population? No. No. So now I have this. I have all freshmen and I have all seniors. And who's missing out? I don't have any sophomores or juniors, so this is a bad design. I can't do that because my sample is not a representation of the population. Okay? So if you think, okay, you have this population and you have these clusters, whatever the case, if cluster 1 looks like cluster 4, and cluster 4 looks like 2, and 2 looks like 3, and 3 looks like 1, and 2 looks like 4, okay? If 1 looks like 2, who looks like 3, who looks like 4, then I'm allowed to pick, then I could randomly choose 1 and 3, and 1 and 3 are my sample. Okay? 1 and 3 are my sample. Okay? And you take everybody from 1 and 3. Okay? So basically that's cluster sampling. Um, I will give a quick example that the book uses. And they say they want to get a... Okay, so you have a BVD book. Okay? BVD book. Okay? And there's a lot of pages. There's a lot of pages. So an SRS would be go ahead and randomly pick page numbers, and then we want to analyze how many sentences are in each, how many sentences are in, or let me say, how many words per sentence. Words per sentence on each page. Okay? So you have this big book. Okay? So do you believe that page 1 is a good representation of the whole book? Page 2, a good representation. 3, all the way to the last page. Last page. If each page is a good representation of the whole book, okay, meaning that you don't think the book's getting harder as it goes, or it doesn't start easier. If you think page 1 is about the same as the last page, then each page is a cluster. Page is a cluster. So you could randomly pick, let's say 10 pages and check. Okay, you would check each page. That would kind of be like cluster sampling. And stratified would be saying, maybe pick, use every page and take an SRS of so many sentences out of those pages, but it kind of gets cumbersome after a while there. And you'll see many examples. We'll talk about many examples of these in classes, but just let you know, we're going to split the population into these clusters, and then you're going to go ahead and take randomly select a cluster, and then take everybody from those clusters that you randomly chosen. Okay, so that's it. That's cluster sampling. We have one more sampling method, good sampling method to do before we're done with our sampling methods. And thanks for watching.